Selected verses for meditation on the Conquest of the Illuminating Void by Samael Aun Weor. What is important is certainly to experience the truth. Truth is within the illuminating void. When Jesus, the great Kabir, was asked, "What is the truth?" the Master kept silence. And when the Buddha was asked the same question, he turned and walked away. The truth cannot be described, it cannot be explained. Everyone has to experience it for themselves through the technique of meditation. In the illuminating void, we experience the truth. This is an element that transforms us radically. One must persevere. One must be tenacious. It may be that in the beginning we do not achieve anything. But as time passes, we feel that we are becoming more and more profound. And finally, one day, the experience of the illuminating void will burst forth within our mind. Unquestionably, the illuminating void in itself is the holy Okidanok, the omniscient, omnipresent, omnipenetrating, active Okidanok that in itself emanates from the sacred absolute Sun. Blessed is the one who manages to be precipitated into the illuminating void, where no creature lives, because there is precisely where one will experience the reality, the truth. If one has experienced the truth, one is filled with strength to persevere in the work on oneself. We need to free ourselves from the law of evolution and also from the law of devolution. We need to make a giant leap so as to fall into the illuminating void. Obviously, then, there exists an antithesis between the theory of relativity preached by Albert Einstein and the illuminating void. Whatever is relative is relative. The machinery of relativity functions with the law of opposites, with dualism, In the battle of antithesis there is pain, and that is not happiness. If we want authentic happiness, we have to escape from the mechanical law of relativity. We need to make a giant leap, I repeat, so as to fall into the bosom of the illuminating void. I experienced the illuminating void in my youth. I was barely 18 years old when I was able to take that gigantic leap, to go beyond time and to experience that which is not of time, that which we could call the Prajna Paramita experience in its most crude reality. It is not irrelevant to emphasize the fact that I had to repeat such an experience 3 times. I knew then what Sunyata was. I could live it. In the illuminating void, there is no conceptual dualism of any type. The machinery of relativity would not function in the illuminating void. The laws of mutual combinations, of mechanical associations, are not possible in the illuminating void. All of Einstein's theory of relativity will be destroyed in the illuminating void. Undoubtedly, the experience of the illuminating void is only possible in the state of samadhi. Yes, in the state of samadhi, or, as it is also known, the state of Prajna Paramita, the perfection of wisdom. In the illuminating void, there are no forms of any type. It could be stated that there one passes beyond the universe and the gods. In the illuminating void, one could find a correct answer to that question. If the entire universe reduces itself to the unit, to what does the unit reduce itself to? Such an answer is not possible for the logical mind, or at least for the mind that functions according to formal logic. In the illuminating void, such an answer is unnecessary, because there, such an answer is a clear, defined reality. If all things reduce themselves to the unity also reduces itself to all things. Then, the consciousness of the one who enters that state of Mahasamadhi, stripped of any form, lives in all things, and this, by itself, is already wonderful, sublime, and ineffable. Thus, to definitively submerge oneself into Sunyata, that is to say, into the illuminating void, is only possible via the Great Leap, and under the condition of having undergone total Buddhist annihilation. Otherwise, it would be impossible. In my youth, when I experienced the illuminating void, I had not undergone the Buddhist annihilation, and obviously, as I progressively approached the great reality, my consciousness, bit by bit, expanded itself immeasurably. It is obvious that in that situation, not having undergone Buddhist annihilation, I felt unspeakable terror, and as a consequence, I returned to the universe of Einstein's relativity. I repeat, 3 times did I experience the illuminating void and knew through Sunyata, through that living transcendental experience, that there is something beyond the illuminating void. What is that something? That something is that which is called the great reality. I knew this through a transcendental type of intuition, because in the field of intuition, or within the world of intuitionality, there are different degrees of intuition. Unquestionably, the highest intuitive degree is that of the philosophical religious or philosophical mystical mind. It is the type of intuition that corresponds to the prajna paramita. Such a faculty, therefore, allowed me to know beyond the world of the illuminating void is the great reality. The great reality, Sunyata, prajna paramita, is beyond the universe of relativity. That is to say, it is beyond the mechanical laws of relativity, beyond, far beyond the illuminating void. In other words, the great reality transcends these 2 opposites that I would call mechanics of relativity and the illuminating void. Thus, the illuminating void is not the last word. It is just the entrance hall of the great reality. What I am speaking to you is not merely theoretical. In past Mahamanvantaras, I experienced the great reality, and as I know it, as I experienced it, I have to give a living testimony of it. The important thing for us is to go through a supreme annihilation so that the consciousness, turned into bodhicitta and fully awakened, can take the great leap, falling into the illuminating void. And one more step, and we will reach the great reality. But, as I say, we must start by changing our way of thinking to work properly on ourselves by disintegrating the undesirable psychic elements that we carry inside. Thus, we could achieve the awakening of the consciousness and the development of the bodhicitta. Little by little, the moment comes when the consciousness is completely liberated and awake, ready to take the great leap and fall into the illuminating void, which is the entrance hall to the great reality. We want the great reality, the vivid experience of Sunyata, the vivid experience of the Prajnaparamita. Thank God we have the consciousness within us. It is precisely the most precious gift. A pity that it is bottled up within the ego. But if we achieve the liberation of the consciousness, then we will be ready for the great leap, for the supreme leap. A liberated consciousness is a consciousness that can immerse itself in the great reality of life, free in its movement. This great reality is inexhaustible happiness, beyond the body of affections and the mind. It is a happiness that is impossible to describe in words. We all want happiness, and none of us have it. We need to be happy, but it is not possible to be happy in a world of combinations. It is not possible to be happy within this machinery of relativity. Remember that the ego is time, that the ego is a book of many volumes, and that it is exposed to the laws of cause and effect. It is time for us to think about our liberation from karma. It is time to liberate ourselves from this painful world, from this infernal machinery. It is time for us to think about the true joyfulness of the great reality. I want happiness for you, the true joy of the being. Nonetheless, there is something I must add before closing this lecture. We need you to learn to deeply meditate, to know how to meditate. When one has achieved true concentration, one reaches true joyfulness. If, back in my youth, I had not experienced the illuminating void, I would not be speaking to you now in the way that I am speaking to you. That vivid experience was never erased from my consciousness, nor from my mind, nor from my heart. It is possible that in one of these samadhis, that is, in a practice of profound meditation, the consciousness of a human being can escape from within the ego in order to experience the bliss of the illuminating void. It is obvious that if one succeeds, one will gladly work on him or herself, because one will have experienced, certainly, in the absence of the ego, that which is the truth, that which is not of time, that which is beyond the body, affections, and the mind. Hopefully, you will achieve this experience of the real, so that you feel internally encouraged and will work on yourself. Inferential peace.